Senator Burdick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to bring forward a couple of facts in this discussion that sometimes get lost in the emotionalism over this debate. When you hear the testimony of victims, when you hear the nature of some of the crimes that are committed, whether they be violent or nonviolent, sometimes that shades the overall picture that we're dealing with. And one of the main facts that we have to keep in mind is that 95% of the people who are in prison and 100% of the people who are covered by this bill are getting out. And so the question we have to ask as policymakers is, what kind of condition do we want them to be in when they come out? And my good colleague from Beaverton has just described some of the National Conference of State Legislatures data that she has gathered from other states, showing in an analytical way that the recidivism rate is lower for people in states that provide this kind of a mechanism. And I couldn't agree more with the gentlelady from Salem who just spoke about the importance of monitoring this. It really kind of reminds me of drug court. Drug courts are extremely effective because you have day-to-day accountability, and part of that accountability is going to the pokey for a few days. And you have the accountability, but you also have the support in these drug courts. They save money all throughout the process. Well, earned time is has the same kind of potential. These people are getting out anyway. We need to ask ourselves, what condition do we want them coming out in? Do we want compliant people who have obeyed the rules in prison and have finished their programs, often including drug treatment programs? Or do we want people who have been in, yes, maybe 2-3 months longer, but have had no incentive within the walls to change? I think the answer is obvious. And it's also a resource issue. I mean, we've talked about in this discussion, the resources that we're able to get channeled into the into other parts of the criminal justice system that are more effective in dealing with some of these issues. But there's also resources throughout our system. Oregon has the dubious distinction of spending more on corrections than we spend on higher education. And we could send some of these people to college for a year for what we spend on sending them to prison for a year. When you see a statistic like that, you see that you have to be smarter on criminal justice issues. Nobody's arguing that people ought to just be let off and not held accountable when they commit serious crimes. But we need to be smart about it. We need to recognize that these people are coming out. We need to have programs within the prison. We need to devote our resources to the kind of preventive programs that are actually going to keep them from reoffending, rather than just standing on our little hill and saying, by gosh, you're going to stay there for another 2 months. Our money is better spent elsewhere. And it's best spent in areas like early childhood prevention that might keep them from going to prison in the first place. We have a finite budget. We are in a period of economic scarcity, and we need to be smart. Now, I voted for House Bill 3508 as well, because I support the concept of this. We didn't get it right. I would be the first to admit that. I had no intention when I voted for that bill of some of the things that happened under that bill. And that just happens sometimes. But I want to commend the work group that developed 3508 and came back and rolled up their sleeves and gave us Senate Bill 1007 to fix the oversights. I am so relieved that we're not taking the politically easy course of just repealing it. I'm so proud that we're doing our jobs here and fixing this system and retaining the values that caused us to adopt it in the first place. I urge an aye vote.